Hi, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue our discussion on Shadowrun. We were talking about magic in the awakened world. We were talking about the astral plane. Today I've got some more things. I've got astral projection and astral combat. Let's talk about astral projection. This means that there are some awakened creatures that have the ability to leave their effective physical forms, to remove their mental energies and project them into the astral plane, where they take on an astral form, and therefore are astrally projecting. Now, you have to have the magician quality in order to do this. Those are the only groups of awakened humans or metahumans that can do this. You can do this for a number of hours equal to your magic score. After that point in time, you have to return to your body. If you do not, your astral form dies, and therefore your body then goes into a permanent coma, which it can never recover from. So there is some danger to leaving your body behind. You may never return if it takes too long periods of time. Now, when you are in astral space, you are no longer limited by the travel there. You can travel at the speed of thought. You can travel so fast that you can circle the globe in an hour. You can go to a nearby area just instantaneously. But think about it. Globe in an hour. If you have like a magic 5, you have 5 hours. You can circle the globe 5 times and return to yourself and be safe and sound. Think about that speed. Effectively, you can travel approximately 100 meters in a combat turn as a part of an astral walk. Yeah, that's walking in astral space. Or you could run at 2 kilometers a combat turn, but at that point in time when you're traveling so fast, you have at least a -2 penalty to all your dice checks, if not more. When you are traveling this fast, you cannot perceive anything. You do not pick up on things. When you're basically racing around the world, you don't know what the heck is going on. You may have to worry about hitting an astral barrier. Those things will still stop you. You're still not limited, though. People keep themselves limited close to the ground, unfortunately, where you will find a lot of astral barriers. You have to consider the planet itself is an astral barrier. You cannot travel through the planet. It has a signature which you hit into. But you're not limited by gravity. You could travel up, which people learn to do. It's one of those things. You don't think about, I can fly. Now, you do have to worry, if you get up to 80 kilometers... you're crazy. You're effectively going into doing things that people cannot physically do. Once you hit 80 kilometers, most people, the foolish, either die or come back mad. So you cannot leave the planet, though, even though you can try to. The kind of bubble around it seems to exist. When you are actually projecting, you are no longer connected to your physical body. That no longer matters. All of your physical stacks while projecting are based upon your mental ones. Effectively, you mirror them. So there is a chart that will show you how things mirror from your character, that each of your mentals will then become also your mental and your physical in astral space. Things like your intuition replaces reaction, so intuition times 2 for initiative. These are numbers that you're going to have to keep track of, especially. And if you do get into combat, as I said, intuition times 2 is your initiative, and you get 3 initiative passes because you are going so fast in this space. Now, if you're injured while astral projecting, or if your body is injured while you're out of it, you will feel it. They feel the connection between it. It's like when you astral project, whatever injuries your body had go with you, but also it's the fact that if like something happens to either side of you, it's going to affect the other side. You're going to feel it. Like you're going to get the penalties if your body's getting beaten up and hit. You're going to get hit here. It's not the same way because you're not actually getting injured. It's just you're getting the feedback of being injured because something's destroying your physical source. Now, you pretty much pass through everything. Not everything, I should say. You pass through a lot of things, like buildings, non-living material, rocks, those sort of things. You just pass through them. Granted, I did say the Earth was a solid boundary just because it has its own signature. But other things like living creatures will block you. As I said, the astral barriers will block you. That's why certain things can still affect you, though. You can get affected by, of course, anything that has like a mana signature, awaken things. You can also be affected by something like a foci, a weapon foci that can be used against you. You're vulnerable to that, and mana spells will affect you while you're this. And your senses when you're astrally projecting are the exact same as when you're astrally perceiving. So you're using the senses of your astral perception really when you're actually projecting at the same time. That's how you're going to tell a lot of what's going on around you and interpret it into your mind. Even though you're sort of physically there, you've trained yourself to understand what you're seeing, kind of, or experience. Now, you do have to worry if either side of you dies. If your physical body dies, you as an astral projection, you can exist for twice your magic a number of hours before you fade into nothingness because you no longer have that connection. So you do last a little while longer once your connection's been severed through death, It's just you can't really do a lot during that time. If your astral projection dies, your physical body's in a coma. You could maybe last a week without food or water, or indefinitely on life support. There's nothing wrong with your body, you just have nothing inside of you. Now the thing is, a physical body, it sort of blocks you, but you can still pass through it. It acts more like a dampener than anything. Like if I'm standing here and an astral projection tries to go through me, they just don't like squeeze through me. I'm sort of like an area that they have to pass through. But my own signature sort of blocks them to a degree. It doesn't prevent them from moving, but it does. I might be able to notice something that's going on. I would make a perception plus intuition 4 check, and if I get plus 2 dice if I am awakened. If not, I just still get my normal test. If I'm successful, I get this kind of chill up my spine. I've noticed something weird is going on. There are actually people that will train their guards to recognize this, to recognize when some kind of astral form is traveling through them so that they can alert security that, hey, astral form just passed through me. Is one of your magic guys doing this, or is someone breaking into our place? Now, when I'm astral projecting, I can actually do the opposite of astral perceiving. I can manifest. What manifesting means is I'm then beginning to peer into the real world and understand what's going on there. I can do it as a simple action, just like I could do with astral perceiving in the first place. I can manifest into the real world. I would effectively appear as a ghostly form of sort of what I am in the real world. The only problem is I don't have a physical body. I can't really interact with things. Technology wouldn't pick me up. People might see me. Advantage, I can still use mana spells on people. If my mana spells would affect anybody, I can still use them at this point in time in this form that I've taken. I just can't do any kind of physical combat or physical kind of maneuvers or skills. But anything that would be more mental skills or even, as I said, mana-based spells, I could use them just perfectly fine when I'm manifesting somewhere, and it might be a way that you could sort of infiltrate and interact with something in that way. You just have to have the right mana spells. Now let's talk about astral combat, because that's battling it out in the astral plane, which a figure that's like astrally projecting or is dual-natured could very well engage in astral projection. You've got astral combat. You've gotten into a situation where you can get involved in this. You would be using your willpower plus astral combat as a dice pool for whatever kind of combat maneuvers you're attempting to do within there. It's traditionally going to be unarmed or a weapon foci if you have it, or mana spells are what you're going to use for combat. Unfortunately, no ranged items actually translate into it, but you could have like a weapon foci that's like a sword or something, but like something like a gun just does not work when you're trying to bring it into the astral plane or battle it out astrally. Now, since you don't use your strength when in astral combat, you in fact use your charisma in place of it, and you could do it for whatever kind of attack you're doing. You can choose whether you'll be doing stun or physical damage to your target. Astral barriers will function just like real barriers in combat. So you would affect it just the way you'd be like firing or trying to damage a barrier. Same way for astral combat. Let's move on and talk about astral tracking, which is you're taking one of these signatures and trying to track it back to its source, whether it's from like the residue of a spell or from a summon or from something else that's been left behind that you can track it back to its source. Maybe you found a lodge and you're trying to find out what magicians are linked to it. Well, either way, anyway, you are effectively trying to track something using your... Usually astral projecting is what you're going to use in order to find out where to go to, and you're going to then track them through the astral plane, find out where to go, and effectively then, if you wanted to, go back to your body, let people know about it, or, just then take some people to that spot. Either way. It's going to be an extended test of assessing plus intuition, where you have to get 5 successes. It's going to be over an interval of about an hour, but for each time you have to make a test, you increase the ones you need by 1. So it becomes difficult the longer it takes in order to track them back. But it is relatively simple thing to do, actually. Now let's briefly talk about metaplanes, because metaplanes do exist. They're something that only initiates can actually reach into and find. They're areas that are beyond our perception of a reality. They're beyond the astral plane into sort of realities or realms far beyond our imagination, which a initiate can attempt to project into. Now, there is debates whether these are real or not, or how they actually exist, but it is known the fact that an initiate could die in one of these places, and they die in real life, effectively. They die just like they would be in the astral plane. So whether you think it really is real, it functions as a real threat. And an initiate that is diving into the metaplanes, it is a way that they can be used, exploring those in order to master their magic even more and increase their initiate rank. Now, there are many different types of metaplanes, but traditionally you will find a metaplane per spirit type, and you're not limited by your tradition for where you're traveling to. So like, whether if you're a shaman and you can go to the spirit types that you wouldn't have access to, same with hermetic, you could go to the spirit type of plane that you wouldn't have access to. It's just a matter of wanting to explore one of these places and go there. And there are certain planes that there might be requirements to do, that you might have to find some kind of way of entering into. There are sometimes journeys in and of themselves to explore these planes and in realities deep layered in amongst our entire universe, like parallel universes almost. It's an incredible and amazing journey in and of itself that traditionally is represented by your character initiating. That's when they're exploring the metaplanes in between adventures. It's an adventure you could run, but it's one usually left to the imagination. So that's it for today. I went over some more information about the astral plane when we're dealing with the awakened world. I talked about astrally projecting, traveling into the astral plane with a kind of form that is a manifestation of your mental energies and magical powers. And I talked about astral combat briefly. I mentioned, of course, astral tracking, which is very important to know about, and of course, the metaplanes, which if you initiate, you will be exploring at some point in time in some form or another. In the next one, I'll dive deeper into astral barriers and talk about how they work, and I'll move into speaking about adepts, a different type of magic user than we've already talked about, than we're already used to. So if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel, the Empire, and the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can check out my Patreon, link in the description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.